What's up, everyone, and welcome to Layer by Layer. Today we're going to be talking about this little video that you may have seen a little bit earlier this week, and then our software that was released, a small filament update, and a few things about the news and what's happening in the world. So those are the things we're going to get into. The axe video. So the axe video was kind of a fun one to do. It was sort of a different format, which was fun for us. But I wanted to kind of like deep dive into it because we weren't able to talk about some of the details of that video because it was mainly like, how tough was the axe head? Ultimately, a lot of people ask, why didn't we do CF nylon or something like that? And the answer is because it would work fine. You can chop down a tree with carbon fiber versions of the material. So we wanted something that would definitely fail. And also that something was kind of relatable to folks because PLA, people often misattribute how wimpy PLA is. And we wanted to use that, number one, to not have very many variables, but to also just demonstrate what is a low-grade material and how well it could actually hold up. It did not go as expected because we had sliced it. This is useless information. I want to make sure this is very clear. This is useless information. Slicing is not dependent on the slicer. It is dependent on the settings in the slicer. That being said, the first head, the head that was actually the strongest was actually sliced in Cura. It was using a very old profile that we've had forever for prototyping, which I do believe pumps a smidgen more material into it. But not that much. The other two had been resliced in Prusa because Prusa does a nicer surface finish than the outputs from Cura. And we thought we were going to do more close-ups of these heads before we filmed them. But the Prusa parts were weaker. That's not really too surprising to me because Prusa is not really the engineering software or machine. It's kind of the hobbyist machine. So the fact that those settings were wimpier when put to the test is not that surprising. But we also can't blame the slicer on it because like we had the yellow head and the blue head. I mentioned it briefly in the video that I kind of assumed that the colorant was one of the factors in how this performed how it is. This is a failed print, by the way, that we were beating up on stuff. It had some shifts up there. But the colorant would make a big difference because in one of our earlier videos, we talked about how like white has titanium dioxide in it, which is a very large, almost grain, not even necessarily molecule, but it changes the material properties of the part. And blue here, I do believe has a higher white mix in it than even that yellow does, because the yellow has some other colors to get to it. So I'm not sure it has as much white involved in it in order to dilute it down to the color that it was. So I want to blame colorant a little bit too, and just a number of circumstances. But like most engineering situations, it's very rarely a very specific issue that caused the blue axe head to fail as early as it did. But it was fine. We got the full demo and we ended up breaking the cinder block. I was surprised that most of them didn't go further. Those cinder blocks were a lot tougher than I had anticipated. But ultimately, what the point of that video is that if you design appropriately and reasonably understand your material, you can make something that is really useful and interesting and can go way further than you really anticipate. These parts, the axe heads for them weren't really necessarily very optimized, but they also didn't need to be. An axe head doesn't have a print optimized version. I mean, we could have put in some more meat in some areas, but there wasn't really a way to drastically and radically improve it because the failure modes that we saw were not due to even really the design. They were due to the material itself, not the printing process or anything else necessarily. It was mainly the material itself. Slicer settings have an impact on it and so on and so forth. Each one of these things has a 10 to 15% impact on it. But PLA was going to take a beating when we were trying to bash a rock at the end of it all. So it wasn't that surprising. But anyhow, that video was a lot of fun. We do want to do more of those types of demos. So we have like a number of tools lined up, which I won't talk about too much, but things you wouldn't expect to really be printed that we're just going to go ahead and print. which is contrary to how we generally look at this kind of stuff, because we always believe that you should make sure that your thing is right for the stuff. But getting the videos that sort of give a fun and intuitive understanding of how this stuff behaves is something that's useful. So we want to do more of those. So we'll be like, how strong is it? What can it do? How did this happen? So on and so forth. We thought about like doing a 3D printed egg drop, that kind of a thing. But anyway, we are going to go ahead and move on to the next topic, filament. So filament. Filament is ready. Filament is ready right now. We could launch it. It's very close. And I apologize for teasing it that way, but we're really busy right now, guys. And we cannot be doing filament, because once we turn on filament, it has to stay forever. And right now the team has been growing really quickly, and we've been doing a bunch of new stuff. Heck, we just launched software. And we're trying to get ahead of the things that we're doing, and we cannot be distracted by a consumer products business that, on the face of it, quite frankly, y'all are really picky. So if we do it, we have to do it really well, and we can't touch our toes into it. So we have to make sure that when that is ready to launch, it is ready to launch, and it's ready to support y'all, and it's at the spots where we want it to be. So all the pieces are in place. The vacuum former is working fine. The extruder is pretty much set up. We got material to spool down. All of it's set in there. But it's just a question of, do we have the manpower to make sure that it's packed and sustained and the quality control is maintained and all that rest of that stuff, because it's going outside of the building. All the stuff inside of the building self-corrects it. There's systems in place that make sure that, there was a slight diameter change of the filament right there. Well, we notice it in process and we fix it and it feeds back. But sending out bad filament, the only feedback we have is a 1-star review, and that's too late. So we need to make sure that everybody's very focused and the processes are set up and consistently maintained over time to do what we need. But filament will be coming soon. We think we're getting to a stable part to where we can actually deploy that and do what we need to do. But we got to make sure we're taking care of our existing clients and our existing business, because the filament was something that was sort of impromptu upon request that we thought we could do a lot of good in. So we wanted to do it, but we got to make sure that we do it right. So anybody out there who's like a supplier who's like quaking in their boots that we're making filament, well, calm yourself down. We got other fish to fry. But anyhow, by the way, the response overall to us doing filament has been really good from our partners, from most of our partners, and from you guys as well. So we don't really see ourselves as competing with anyone, because 3D printing industry is growing at 35% a year. Very few filament manufacturers are growing quickly enough to address that. So more are needed, and it's not going to cannibalize anybody, because the pie is growing so quickly. There's room for an extra slice. Which is a nice thing about the industry, is that it's moving so quickly that anybody who's doing a good job in any part of it can pretty much have a spot without cannibalizing anybody else. It's not this oligopoly where there's a number of like main big players who own it all. It's still very fluid and very open and growing. So that's been a great thing. With the filament itself, there's also a number of cool things we want to do. One of our suppliers did reach out to want to do partnerships on filament. And we think there's something really interesting to do there, because we're really good at like customer support, interfaces, systems, software, operations, that kind of stuff. We're pretty good at making filament, but we are not going to make every color in the rainbow or every variation thereof. But so as a supplier who does it full time, somebody who does it full time is a fantastic resource who we want to work with. So a couple of them reached out and said, is there some way we can help you out? And I was like, we have limited bandwidth and we just want to be making some basic colors that are scraping off of the top of our production needs. If we wanted to partner with a supplier, we could have a higher cost material because there's too many fingers in the pie. But some specialty materials that we as a print farm know need to exist. I'll just tell them here. There's a way to get a perfect surface finish on any filament all the time, forever. Everybody has known about it forever from carbon fiber filaments, that the surface finish is always beautiful. But the reason for that is the particulates inside of it, the shreds of carbon fiber. But you can get that same effect by substituting the carbon fiber for very low cost glass beads. And you will get an equally beautiful matte surface finish. I am giving this secret away so that hopefully some manufacturers take it and run with it and we can commoditize this a little bit. Because a lot of our suppliers don't make it for us, even when we do a custom batch. But if we can incentivize creating a custom blend of material, that'd be really cool. And I think it's something that would be worth doing as even like a Kickstarter or something like that, in partnership with the filament manufacturer. I think that's something we could probably push on because, again, we're very good at marketing and promotion and operations. So organizing that thing into reality is something that we could help out with and wouldn't be constrained by our own operations because we're working with another manufacturing partner. So our machinery isn't what's being constrained. So anyway, the filament has a lot of room to run and a lot of directions to go, and I'd like to keep on running with it. But there's that. 3D system. I'm not talking about 3D systems. We've talked about 3D systems enough. Now to mention Stratasys, everybody's involved, everybody's buying and trying or whatever else it was. Here's a summary of the situation. A bunch of small companies fighting over each other. Everybody's talking about consolidation of the print industry. It's because the print industry itself doesn't know what to do. Everybody is making machines and there's no more market for buying machines. So everybody's diversifying as fast as they can, which is silly because nobody's making their machines better. In order to take new markets. They're just they're taking new markets, but they're not expanding their existing markets. And this is why everybody's kind of flat. Anyway, there's that. Let them all fight about it. I don't care. Whatevs. Doesn't matter. Doesn't affect me. No skin off my nose. Software. Print on demand software. So, thank you guys so much for all the feedback and all the testing. There were... We actually, the demand was higher than we anticipated. There was a lot of files submitted, a lot of people messing with the app. It was really quite impressive. I don't remember the exact number of how many hundred submissions there were, but there was a bunch. So thank you all so much for trying that out. This app was basically set up as a tester app for our main API. And as far as we're concerned, it was a fantastic test. The deployment of it, it's still live. We've got it stabilized. The team's been working over the weekend, fixing it up, doing a great job there. And the app is now stable and more reliable. It is amazing the silly little bugs you find just by shipping. That's why we ship so early. That's also why it wasn't really very feature rich. We wanted to get to core functionality, get it out the door to find out what's going to break before we add in all these features and then a ton of stuff breaks. So next specs, it's already been sped up a bit. We did have it crash once or twice on the day because there was so much demand. But we've gotten around to that. We're speeding up some of the final checkouts there, which had some bugs in them that were causing some slowdowns. And there were some weird file processing errors around STLs themselves, and that an STL is not an STL. It's not the same STL all the time. And this is not around binary or ASCII. It was another weird little error. But we fixed that, and I think it affected like 1 or 2% of submissions or so. But we got that fixed. So now the app is actually quite stable and quite useful. So that has been deployed. What we see this app as is, quite frankly, all of you guys who are probably watching this probably don't care about this app because so many of you have print farms, or not print farms, but printers. So of course you're not going to print a thing because it costs $5 to $10 to ship a thing. I fully appreciate that. This app is really for people who have access to 3D models, but don't really want to necessarily diddle around with the machine. Because the machines be problems. So what we did with this app is it'll be used probably very often by engineering teams who just want quick prototypes without having to think about it. Because again, they don't even have to find a machine or turn on a machine. They just order the part and the part shows up. So convenience is a huge factor there. orthotics and prosthetics, where folks need like a fit test. Most of those guys will not run a printer either because of reliability problems. So having an app where they can just drag and drop a thing in there and get a print out is really useful to them, that they can then fit and then do like a custom cast or something along those lines, or a custom socket, I should say. So it's very useful to folks there and exceptionally affordable within that market as well. So there's a number of people who are going to be using this who are not 3D printing nerds, and that's kind of the intention of it. It's meant to be very, very simple without overwhelming people with options. Oh, do you want MJF or SLS? Or do you want powder or resin or whatever else it was, which are options that generally do not matter from what the person is trying to get to, which is just a part that has a shape that is reliable and reasonable cost. So there's value in that. We will continue building out this application, but it was, for us, it was mainly a tester. It has these values in other markets where it makes life easier for folks, because there's not a print on demand software out there right now. Almost everybody has it integrated somewhere, but it's hard to find. It's very expensive. The last ones, there used to be Make XYZ, which went out of business or shut down and farmed it out. Of course, 3D Hubs used to do stuff, but that went away. There's like the professional FDM now, but I think it's pretty expensive and it's buried. The fact that you can get a file made and you don't even have to submit an email to get access to the app or something was something that was really important to us. We didn't want, sign up for our newsletter and then you can maybe see what your file costs. Quote all day long, I don't care. Server time is not that expensive. If this is a tool that makes it easier for people to get a 3D printed part, that's a win for us. But the other thing with it too is also scale, because within the app, you might have noticed that you can order somewhere between 1 and 100 parts. We are refining that algorithm as well as far as pricing of those. If you're doing more than that, you should get a manual quote from us. But we're refining that, and over time, it'll get smarter and smarter as we see what parts people are sending towards us. But to be able to order 100 parts and basically get them shipped to you in a couple of days without having to deal with any kind of hassle is also pretty amazing, because most print services take weeks. Weeks for not small parts, like fist-sized parts. That app is supported by one of the largest print farms in the world, so you have real scale behind you. So, and that is the real value of the API itself. The API will be out, we think, in a few weeks. There will probably be some other releases before that for, again, kind of testing and just deployment. So we have a Shopify app in the works. We have been working on an Etsy integration. Etsy is terrible. Etsy is very tough to develop for because they do not have a good testing sandbox. And they have very unclear parameters about what is okay or not. As soon as you connect the app, sometimes you can flag a store for suspicious operations. And we're like, we plugged in an application with the API keys you gave to us. What's the problem? So Etsy might actually be longer than we anticipate. We really want to get it out because it's super useful to folks, but super tough. Anyway, so there's that. But yeah, the software went great. The test went great. And that application will continue to exist. And we'll continue to promote it kind of on the channel. So you'll see other videos demoing it. Really in the context of like print on demand, of like, you made a thing. Okay, how do you get it made? That's useful to a lot of folks who are not right in 3D printing. And again, you get so much scale. Sure, you can print your own part for your own machine, but if you're running a store or running a business and you need a lot of parts quickly, having access to a 3,000 machine print farm is pretty useful, because you know the parts will show up. They'll show up reliably and with a certain level of consistency. And we are going to keep a fairly high level of constriction on it. Here, as we add in features, we will add in colors, a few colors, and we will add in some material selection. But those materials, we will probably have PLA, which is just low-grade prototyping, and then we will probably jump all the way to like carbon fiber nylon, because it's just they're catch-alls. They cover very broad swaths of the market, and we don't want to have, oh, do you need a super engineered, very specific, optimized material for this? No, the person who is using this app does not need that. They need a color or they need a function, and those two materials pretty much cover it. PLA can make any color you want and look like any shape that you want, and like carbon fiber can be as strong as you can possibly need it, and there's no way you need it any weaker. They're also well understood materials without any sort of weirdness about them. But anyway, the print-on-demand app will be expanding. We have a couple more applications coming down the line, and then we will turn loose the API so anybody who wants to program with it and build some application on top of it will be able to. But we want to really tease this thing with our own stuff so that you know that we're eating our own cooking. When you say, how well does this API work? We can say, go over here, use this app. This is ours. We made it. It works fine. If you see a bug, let us know. We'll fix it, so on and so forth. It gives us a really good feedback loop to make sure that we're making a good product that everybody can get a hold of. So, a lot of software coming out. A lot of it's going to be released just in time for the Christmas season, which is going to be tough because as soon as we release it all, we're going to be backlogged. Because the final quarter of the year, we're always exceptionally busy because we are Santa's elves for a lot of folks. And we're increasing demand with these software integrations. So it's going to be interesting. But we also, the team, we have a need inside of the factory for a piece of software that we weren't able to find anywhere that was mobile compatible. We will be turning that loose. It's not really a Slant 3D product, though. It'll be like its own little independent thing. But it's basically a barcode and inventory tracking software that's just very, very basic. Basically for job tracking of like, okay, we just got 10 parts in, ready to go. It's shipped out, so on and so forth. That kind of tracking, because it doesn't exist. So one of our guys has been working on that, and here in about a week or so, we should have something to present on that, which we think will be really Etsy for many of the smaller operators out there who are like keeping track of filament inventory inside of their business, and then keeping track of parts made for a client and keeping track of what is on the shelves and all this kind of stuff. So it'll have barcode creation and tracking and inventory tracking in a very, very stripped down, basic function forward application that we are actually probably going to be using inside of our farm too for certain jobs, because it's just the stuff that's out there right now is garbage. Sometimes you connect a barcode scanner to Excel. It's ridiculous. Anyway, so we got that coming down. A lot of stuff in the works. But mainly software is the big focus here for the next few months or weeks. Weeks and months. And the team's been growing fast around that area. But hopefully we'll keep on having good announcements for you. Thanks again, guys, for watching and for testing out the app. It was really, really a big help to have everybody rush in and submit files and make orders and that kind of thing. So thank you again for that. Many of you guys who gave us feedback, we're going to try to print your parts and ship them to you. So if you can give us your shipping address after with a follow-up message there, we will try to get that out to you, because that's a very simple thank you that we can do for testing out the app. That's all we got, guys, for today. So we'll keep on publishing the way we always do. We got a lot more design videos coming out. Folks seem to like those. And we'll keep on showing you new things. Keep on keeping on. Have a great day, everybody.